In the last chapter, we read of the destruction of Shiloh, completely destroyed, and how the ark, the Aron, Brit Hashem, the covenant of God, had been taken by the Philistines because of the evils of Shiloh. And that's where our chapter now picks up. Uplishtim lakhu et Aron ha'Elohim, vayivi'uhu me'even ha'ezer Ashdoda. The Philistines took the Ark of Hashem, the Ark of God, and they brought it from a place called Even HaEzer, right? The name of Even HaEzer means the rock that is my help, my assistance, and they bring it to their town of Ashdod. Of course, we think of Ashdod today as a town in Israel, but it was one like Ashkelon. It was one of the Philistine cities. And what do? They take the Ark of God and they place it in the temple of Dagon and they set up next to Dagon. There's a debate amongst the commentaries, contemporary and medieval, as to what is this house of Dagon. Who is this god Dagon? Traditionally, it's been understood that Dagon is related to the word dag. It's a fish god of some sort. You can probably find pictures online if there's pictures of this chapter that have Dagon as some sort of big fish. The idea of the Philistines living in being Phoenician, coming from Greece, or some sort of Greek areas, often understood. And so there are many who think that it's related to the word dag for a fish. There are others who see it related to the word dagan, right? Wheat. About having flour, about having grains and crops, and that's what it's related to. And either way, we see it. This was a common thing that was done in the ancient period. If my team in God defeated your team in God, I would take your God and I would place him in my temple, because we are in a polytheistic society and we believe in all the gods. But it demonstrates that my God is greater than your God. So the God of the Hebrews, represented by Aron HaElohim, is now secondary. It's sitting next to Dagon. Continuing in verse 3, Pasuk Gimel, Vayashkimu Ashdodim mimocharat v'hinei Dagon nofel lefanav arza. And so the next morning, after the Aron was placed next to this, again, either a god of grain or some sort of fish god image, it had fallen down to the ground in front of the Ark of God, sort of being subservient, bowing down. That's strange. How did this happen? So they just picked it up and put it back in its place. Pasuk Daled, Vayashkimu vaboker. And now it's day number 3. ממחרת והנה דגון נופל לפניו ארץ לפני ארון אדוני וראש דגון ושתי כפות ידיו כורתות אל המפתן רק דגון נשאר עליו. But in the early next morning, Dagon was again lying on the ground in front of the Ark of God, and its head and its hands were cut off. So maybe if this was the fish god, maybe it's the fins were cut off or something, and it's lying on the threshold, and only Dagon's trunk was left intact, only its torso. Al kain lo yidruchu kohanei Dagon v'chol haba'im beit Dagon al miftach Dagon b'Ashdod ad hayom hazeh. And that's why the priests of Dagon, all who enter the temple, do not tread on the threshold of Dagon in Ashdod. They don't do this as a reminder that as a reminder to what had happened in this chapter, where the head and the hands were lying on the threshold. Okay, so a little piece of a Philistine lore, if you want to put it as such. Continuing verse 6. Vatichbad yad Adonai el Ashdodim, vayisimeim, vayachotam batichorim et Ashdod v'et gvuleha. So first thing that happened was, is God, represented by the Aron, is showing the people of Ashdod that he is not secondary to Dagon. I'm not going to be seated in front of Dagon. I am the true God, the only God of the world. And that's phase 1, to demonstrate that in the Beit Dagon. And in the second place, where we have it, now God is there's some sort of plague that's happening to the people of Ashdod, and they get hemorrhoids. It must have been very, very bad hemorrhoids. Hard to understand exactly why this is what it was, that it was hemorrhoids. I've heard cute things said like, we go to the bathroom and it's something that we happens, and all of a sudden, when you got these bloody hemorrhoids, I've taken advantage that it's so easy to go to the bathroom. And maybe, we've taken advantage, we just take for granted, I should say, the fact that God is there, and the sun rises and the sun sets, and etc., all the regular things in life. And so maybe that's part of the lesson. You're not to be bowing down to this God, but to have a greater appreciation for the regular things in life, which are provided by not by many gods, but by one God. Okay. Hard to give a good answer as to why this is exactly the punishment. Vayru anshe Ashdod kichein. This was verse 7. So the people of Ashdod, they realize, they say, we're being cursed because the ark of God, we can't keep it here. Look at what's happened to us, and look at what's happened to our God Dagon. And so they send messengers to get all of the kings, the leaders of the Philistines. And they say, what should we do? And they say, okay, let's send it to Gat, another one of the Philistine cities. So they move it to Gat. And so they move it, and now it's in Gat. And there's a second time, there's another plague, a great panic. Everybody, young to old, again, hemorrhoids. Everybody's getting hemorrhoids. They can't sit down. They're in pain. So now they send it to a third Philistine place, to Ekron. The people of Ekron, as they see the ark coming to them, they say, did you move the ark of Israel here to slay us? We don't want it. So all of the Philistine kings and princes and lords, they get together and they say, get rid of this ark. Keep it away from us. Move it back to its place, because it's causing damage and death to us. Because the panic of death pervaded the whole city so heavily, had the hand of God fallen there. And right, the last chapter, the Israel brought their army, their huge army, and they were devastated. They were roundly 30,000 soldiers were killed. And here, none of their soldiers are battling. Nobody's got a sword. Nobody's got a spear. Nobody's sitting on a chariot. And they are being, and the Philistines are being, a terrible plague is happening to them from the God of Israel. And it shows where the real power in Israel resides, and it resides with God. Continuing verse 12, and the men who did not die were stricken with hemorrhoids, and the outcry of the city went up to heaven. And here it's interesting, right? Saying it went up to heaven, that even maybe there are those, you could say, that maybe God was hearing them and hearing their cry out and feeling bad for them. There are other commentaries who say it's lashon guzma, it's an exaggeration. It's sort of like a mocking, that's what it's sort of saying, and it may be related to the idea of going to the bathroom, and things go down, and so their cries are going up to the heavens. Maybe sort of an up versus down sort of thing that's going on in this chapter. And it's certainly a very strange chapter. This whole idea of the Philistines getting this plague of hemorrhoids. But part of what's going on here, just so we know, is there's many stories in the book of starting in the book of Shoftim and then here in Shmuel, where the Philistines, what they want to do is sort of embarrass Bnei Israel, mock them, say that their God is stronger, right? When they captured Shimshon in the last book, they cut out his eyes, they had him dance in front of them. When we'll meet Goliath, he's going to, not that long from now, he's going to stand up, he's going to mock Israel, he's going to mock the God of Israel, he's going to blaspheme them. Nobody can fight me, we're greater than you. Shaul is terrified that he's going to be tortured by the Philistines. There's a lot of sort of triumphalism to them. There's a lot of this sense of demonstrating that we are better than the Israelites that's constantly happening. I'm sure for the Israelites, the same thing happens. We saw it one time or a couple of times in the story of Shimshon, but how the Bnei Israel, how they refer to the Philistines as Ha'arelim in a pejorative sense, these men who are who are uncircumcised, and that's the way they look at them in sort of a mocking fashion. So it goes both ways. But here, and that's a big piece of what goes on in these chapters, whose God is greater, whose God is better. We're going to mock you, we're going to make fun of you. But ultimately, in this story and in this tale, what ends up happening is the God of Israel demonstrates that she is second to none, and will not will not bow down, will not be secondary to the God of the Philistines. And with that, the Philistines are left with the question of what is going to happen to the Aron Hashem, what is going to happen to the Ark of God, and we'll continue to hear what's going to happen to the Ark of God come tomorrow.